things they want while we work on how we're going to get our own state police. Reconstruction, a lot of things has been damaged. It is sad because it's like taking the state back to ground zero. We need to bounce back. We only just getting out of the COVID pandemic, and here we are again. The little we have, we need to utilize it very well. Let us get people involved, people in our community. All these people that are vandalizing, looting, we need to keep everybody busy. We have general hospitals that are down, we have police stations that are down. If the Security Trust Fund want to go into reconstruction, fixing of the police stations, let them also consider some of these people that will claim they are jobless. If they know you are a plumber and you are good, let us keep them busy. The traffic lights that have been messed up, let us look for electricians among them. We need to all get busy. Let us make them get involved in some of these things. Let us let them see themselves as stakeholders in most of these things. Maybe if they see themselves as stakeholders, they won't even think of pulling down the things that they were once part of building. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, yeah, we're talking about the young entrepreneur, business owners. The trust fund is saying, okay, we can give you loan to start up. Deep down, not everybody will come out of this thing. Not everybody will recover from the loss. Let us also look for a way we can, even the police we're talking about, give them loan, no interest loan as well. They've also lost things. I was speaking to an area commander yesterday, and as old as he is, he was weeping. So, Mr. Speaker, this is also an opportunity for us to re-strategize, to plan our security apparatus. And lastly, sir, data is also very key in this state now. We have a whole lot of people in this state that we can't even account for where they came from. We need data. If it is for us to make things difficult, in the sense that before you can use a government general hospital, you need to provide a means of identification. Thank you so much, sir.
Honorable Sholaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and my colleagues. I believe in Section 40 of Nigeria Constitution, which says that right of peaceful assembling and association. Agree, but it's too long. Lagos is mini Nigeria. Lagos is mini Nigeria in the sense that just a problem, a mini problems in the Lagos State Road would not be solved in the next 2 hours. Talk less of more than 8 days or 9 days for peaceful demonstration, which been hijacked by hoodlums. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the way it started, and from my own end, I started weeping that if somebody can start a command the strategic areas, if you don't see them, burn them. If you don't do this, burn them. If you don't do that, even if you don't have any firearms, go and get catapult. And it's a crime for somebody govern Lagos State for good 8 years, lay standard foundations, which other governors emulate, and this man have left state government or any government or a political heads over 12 years or 14 years. Yes, you are still jealous in the man. I stand with Ashwa Jibola Ahmed Tinubu. And believe honestly, Mr. Speaker, I also stand with you. I stand with Governor of Lagos State for all practice action that you have taken. If assuming that the governors and the right honorable speakers have not done this, what else could have done now? My brothers and my sister, the Lagosians, we don't need to listen to the fake news. An issue that have happened, an accident occur in East, They now started this one happen in Ketu. And this is one of their problems. The same thing happened with what Honorable SOB have said. I think what the Honorable have said, I don't want to repeat it, is exactly what is transpired in Ikorodu. And I must give kudos to those youths that have stand with the heritage, that have stand to defend their town, that have stand to defend their communities. And I also give kudos to Onyabos, Agbekoyas, and some other states too, and other local government that are able to defend their town. And this is what we also need to emulate. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's rather unfortunate that the peaceful protest of the by our youth was overturned and hijacked by the hoodlums. I believe the protest started early stage as a normal way it ought to have started, and who later unleashed the serious damage to the private and public belongings of our people. And it later started with the crisis of thinking it's just our youth alone. It's not just our youth. We are the heads, we are the leaders of different constituencies. We know ourselves from our local governments, we know our youths, we know what is capable of them doing, we know how to curb them, but the one that just happened is just like you see youths moving from a local government. There was one that happened in Bedleki. Youth from Bedleki are trying to move down to Ekpe. If not for the leaders and the political fathers in Ekpe that have tried to talk with the youth that they should try and block the entrance of Ekpe so that the hoodlums won't penetrate into the Ekpe, because the only thing we have in Ekpe is just the local government. But the obas and the leaders advise the youth that if you open your eyes down, that you eventually allow the hoodlums to come in your local government and burn it down, what else will you have as a means of living after the whole crisis? But Mr. Speaker, these youths that caused crisis in our state has demonstrate themselves that they only want to make sure our government is being destabilized. And I'm happy the leaders of the House of Assembly, ably led by our Speaker, has in mind to move out and talk with the various people that are affected in their local government. The state governor move as well as with his commissioners to commiserate with the affected people. And to my colleagues, I appreciate everybody that have lend their voice in different ways we can have a way forward. And I would like to join my colleague, Honorable KJ. He spoke about the ASU. I will advise the federal government to please dialogue with the ASU leadership in order to make peace and allow the students to leave the streets so that they will start their proper ways of education. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Jimo. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, good afternoon. I endorse the submission of honorable members here today, but it's important to also be looking at things we have overlooked, in the sense that the way the social media is going and the way and manner is going to put some danger that will confront us in the near future, in not far-fetched future. And we can take a cue from what has happened in United Arab Emirates, Oman, Finland, and some other countries. There is a way these social media messages can be controlled. You can't just post anything in United Arab Emirates, for instance. It's being controlled by the government, the central government. Indeed, they have a department for that. I think it's important because the misinformation that got to the people gave birth to this. And unfortunately, the so-called intellectual giants, the way this thing is being justified, is dangerous for our development. If those who are big and mighty in the country are also justifying whatever is happening with the French Revolution of 1789, that violence has been part of political development. Yes, fine, it happens in French, but we cannot use that to justify what is happening now. So it's important, and it's really, really important for us to look in that direction, so that the idea of state police we are clamoring for, and some of those who don't agree to the submission of the state police should see merit in what we are saying about the state police. And we have put this argument forward severally when we are told that the governors and some other government apparatus will be using them to their own advantage, especially during the election. But just the same argument comes to the state high court. It's being created by the state, established by the state, funded by the state. But they have been giving judgment even against the state that created them, including the state civil service. They serve the entire populace, not only those who are in government. So we should look into this direction the way I understand it. I said it earlier, I mean, at the beginning of that the position of honorable colleagues on this matter is very important, and I think we should stand by it.
Honorable Tijani. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, last Tuesday and Wednesday was a bad story in the history of Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, there is need to address some issue at the earlier stage before it gets out of hand. And this is the reason why we must thank you for your intervention during the earlier stage of this protest. Your intervention really protects us. If not, some of us won't be here today, because we believe that the interests of the youth are your concern. Mr. Speaker, in my town, a police post was burned down. All the properties in the exhibit room was looted, to the extent that the burned vehicle and the tricycle was also butchered, that led to the death of one of our boys. Mr. Speaker, I think there is need to appeal to the state government and federal government to compensate those that are affected, either their life, their businesses, or properties. Mr. Speaker, there is also need to call for community policing, state policing, because that very day when the Nigerian police was attacked, nobody to call to protect the interests of the citizen. And also another thing, Mr. Speaker, the issue of social media influencer is also need to be addressed, because these are people that are engaged in spreading the fake news to incite the general public against the government. Although it is not a new thing in our chamber, we have those bad elements that call themselves activists that pass wrong information across to these people to make sure that they incite the general public against the public office holder. So this needs to be addressed. And Mr. Speaker, lastly, I think this is our government. We have to say the truth. If it is possible for us to advise or to appeal to the federal government on the opening of the borders, because before the closure of the border, we used to purchase rice, foreign rice, at the rate of 11,500. Local rice at 7,000. Lake rice, it was 7,000. But now, the poor are unable to buy rice, since we choose rice as our major food. They sell the local rice at the rate of 20-something thousand. This is not good enough. We need to do something. This is our government. Thank you, sir.
Honorable David Akbar.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. More than ever, I am still proud to be youth. I am proud because we fought for a cause and we got it. We wanted to end SARS and we got it. But more than ever, I condemn the activities that erupted afterwards by we the youth. While I want to pass my condolences to those who have lost their lives, the police officers, the protesters, the first responders, and many others within the state, I would also like to state clearly No one else brought this to us but us. What we asked for was to end SARS. What we almost got was beyond end SARS and was to end Lagos. And in essence, to end Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, when we came out, we asked that the SARS be abolished or to be disbanded. You gave us the opportunity to speak on the floor of the House. We got the governors of states to speak regarding it. We got them to protest. Furthermore, speakers of both the National Assembly and the state assemblies spoke about it. And in less than 3 days after a resolution was also passed by this noble house, we got what we wanted. But we didn't stop there. Where did the problems come from? The problems came from the social media, where influencers were comfortable enough to pass news that were fake, and our people went ahead with it and believed it. Mr. Speaker, what we got was beyond what we wanted. And I condemn all attacks, all destructions of public properties, government properties, and private properties. At the end of the day, it is clear what we wanted was beyond what we got. Mr. Speaker, the police has been in existence since the creation of this country. And in Lagos State, we have the Security Trust Fund that has also supported the police itself. We have the RRS, we have the GMT, the Governor's Monitoring Team, we have the Lagos State Task Force, we have the CTU that have operated very well within the ambit of the law and the police sector. The SARS was not created by the state government. We do not have powers over the SARS or the police itself. The governor does not have the powers over the army, neither does the Speaker of the House do it. Mr. Speaker, it is clear our problems come from our Constitution. Until we continue to ask and agitate for a constitutional review, we will not get the way forward in our country. Mr. Speaker, a lot has happened. I was also opportune to follow you, to have on-site assessment of the damages caused. Mr. Speaker, I wept. Heritage over the years, monuments over the years were burnt down. Investment over the years from governors from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to Babatunde Fashola, down to the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, has been burnt down. Mr. Speaker, we were still suffering deficits from infrastructure. Now we have burnt the little things we have down. Mr. Speaker, buses were burnt down. Over 180 buses were burnt down. Who would suffer it? It is still us. Who did it? We were the ones that did it. Mr. Speaker, they were incited by what they read in the news and on the papers. Mr. Speaker, I also want to stand to also say my prayers that the need for the constitutional review should arise now. We must agitate for it at all costs. Also, the need for state policing should become priority on the lips of every honorable members we have both at the State Assembly and the National Assembly. Also, there is the need for the state government to also empower and strengthen our Lagos State Safety Neighborhood Corps, the LNSC. There is the need for us to strengthen them to also be able to bear arms and protect the citizens of our state. Also, Mr. Speaker, the need to regulate the social media has become more than necessary. Our influencers must be brought to books. Those who have spread the fake news, who has incited in one way or the other, should be brought to books. Also, Mr. Speaker, I also want to appeal to the governor, or to call on the governor, to call on the CP, the Commissioner for Police, to also embark on house searches from today to ensure that all the police stations within the state that was looted of ammunitions, they must recover all ammunitions, because at the end of the day, these people cannot protect us anymore. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Nureni.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues. These unfortunate things of this protest started as a peaceful protest by the youth. Then it got to hijack by the hoodlum, hereby destroying and damage the property of innocent citizens. It is a great loss to the state and the nation in general. Some lives were lost, and some property were carted away, while some destroyed. My leader, Senator Gani Olanrewaju Solomon, the only oil that we used in that community was gold bonds. About 14 cars, vehicles were raised. MHR Honorable Yemi Ali, 2 luxurious buses was got burnt, and they even have the gut of coming back the second day to remove the whole engine. They even came with it. They sat there and removed the whole engine. I'm very sure Mr. Speaker can witness to this because I'm very lucky to be on the Speaker team for 2 days. So luckily, Mr. Speaker decided to visit the place at Olateju Street. So Mr. Speaker to witness this. The MHR bus too, and the buses for them, for the public, for the school, it's not for Honorable, for the school children, it's not for Honorable Yemi Ali. Mr. Speaker, please, sir, I would just like the government, sir, please to look at the private sector still needed. We all need to create job and employment opportunity for the youth. We have to quickly reconstruction of the police stations, sir, because most of these people are outside now. They will not work, even if it's just, mini one of what we can do. The Lagos state government can please assist on this, sir. This to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. English is inadequate for me to use for a great leader in this forum, expressing my sadness and damage meted for your personal property and your personal self, sir, by the hoodlum in the name of NSAS protest. They have done their worst, but Allah in his mercy and majestically way will make a top of your enemy both near and far, sir. May Allah make it such an adage in Yoruba land that says, Ile Oba Tojo Ewa Lobusi. I want to use this to take this solace in the word of God that says, if he with you, nothing will befall you. You will with you in his knowledge. May Allah give you the wisdom to overcome all this. You will always lead, my leader. And with you, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, and also support you, Mr. Speaker, for the good job you've been doing. May God, Allah, in his infinite mercy, forgive those people who love their life. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ayode.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleague. Sir, I also join my colleagues to sympathize with the Mr. Governor of this state, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Mr. Speaker, also Dr. Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa. I sympathize with you, the Chief Judge of the state, and the entire member of the representative from the Lagos State in the House of Assembly and House of Representatives in Abuja. Also my colleagues in this Alo chamber. I sympathize with every one of us for what has occurred in our state about 2-3 days ago. I pray to Almighty Allah that we will not see such a thing again. Mr. Speaker, let me quickly pick on Honorable Lowo's submission due to towards his last submission that he was trying to make a motion that, please, Mr. Speaker, he was begging that we should set up a committee of an inquiry, or I don't know how he put it, but to my own knowledge, that is not so much for us also here as part of our own function as a legislator, even going towards our constitution, that we also have the right to set up a committee that is going to look towards what has happened in the state, Mr. Speaker. I also join him if he's coming up with it as a motion. Mr. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity that in case you do such with your power there, any member that have been in that committee, they should ensure that they do the thorough job. Because, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Makinde also mentioned it when we left Abeokuta for our retreat. And on that day coming back, he left Ogun State around 6 o'clock. Towards 11:30, I saw it on our platform that honorable member don't follow this place, it's very terrible, go back, say, what happened? Immediately I got out of that hotel towards 12 on that day. You know, as me from Badagry, I tried to use my own methodology before you could know it. I got out from, what do they call that, where cement factory. From there, I got to Ilaro. From Ilaro, I'm just praying, you know, I didn't have anything, I just calling Almighty Allah, that I was just calling. And immediately my driver, we found ourselves in the Ewekoro, from Ewekoro, Ilaro, before you can see me in Badagry on that day. Thank you, Honorable Makinde. If not so, that day was a very serious day that it has happened on that Saturday morning.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just giving these people that may be in that committee that we should not look towards under Lekki that we people are calling. People started this rubbish, the youth, that they allowed the hoodlums to join them, started this thing. On that Saturday, Sunday is also, before I left Badagry again, I started counting the Ya Allah, and calling the Almighty Allah. I found myself in Ado, from Ado, again, Igbesa, from Igbesa, Lakoti, you know. I got myself in Ikeja again. I didn't use anything, I'm just calling Almighty God. Mr. Speaker, on that day, I was now asking myself, what is happening? What is the issue? Because on that day also, we have begged these youth that, Mr. Governor, I've listened to you. Mr. Speaker went out midnight to come and persuade you people that you should please, that they are going to answer to our problem. I think that one should have been enough, which I said on that day here. Then, Mr. Speaker, again on Monday morning, the youth again started. They didn't allow anybody to enter Alausa. A lot of our civil servants, their bags were snatched, their phone were been collecting on Monday. Tuesday morning, sir, for the record of what may be in that committee, if Mr. Speaker wish to do, that on Tuesday again, before people are just mentioning Lekki, they shoot in Lekki. What causes the shooting? Is it not we? On Tuesday morning again, nobody touched you. Nobody even harassed any youth. You went to, I don't know what they call that place, Jeromi Felodun local government, to burn that place. No, to Tuesday morning, no any curfew then. You went to that local government to burn it down. From there, you went to Orile. Look, I saw that one live. I was crying. You decided to beat the police officer to the last, killing him, macheting him. That, they killed that man. Not on Tuesday morning. And Yoruba will say, only Lu only video too now. The governor now wake up and said, enough is enough. There should be a curfew on Tuesday afternoon. Then you said you are still in Lekki. Mr. Speaker, we had it clearly in what they are sending all this. You can have lacuna. Maybe you may pull lacuna in their committee to search the constitution for them. That is it, if the governor can pronounce something in the state, and you people decided that you will not go away. Who are we? Are we going to take a law into our hands? Is that day that we want to hand the SARS and make sure they replace another one? Mr. Speaker, let me just leave that one in case for the people that want to work on that. Work, don't say only Lekki. They said they remove camera at the end of the day. But some of them don't know what they are talking. The person that is managing a place, you will not allow you to damage. They don't even know differentiate between the camera and the one that is major capturing you assisting us. Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, let me use this opportunity to say, in case you use your power to do, but lastly, Mr. Speaker, let me thank my people, the entire youth from Badagry. Mr. Speaker, when we started in Badagry, I called them, I said, we know each other. Let me know our own problem. Why we want to join the end of SARS? The group, the individual that I could call, I've been calling them, asking them. I'm not saying I'm part of you. I'm also a youth. Yes. That's the thing we are telling them. If we are now saying Mr. Speaker is not a youth, we are referring to our former governor. The analysis, all of us in the government, we started, Mr. Speaker started at the age of 30-something. I started at the age of 33 here. I'm still in the government. I haven't been here 50 years. What do you want to put me here? Am I not part of the youth? Have I promised me youth? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me say, I thank the entire youth of Badagry, sir, for also having it, doing it. But what is our own problem in Badagry, Mr. Speaker? The bad road. With the multiple chambers of the police. That has been there before now. Yes. Even Mr. Speaker, do you know what they are now saying? That some of people say, oh, sure, no, Ashwaju Tira, money, no. Even we bought the entire Badagry. Because Mr. Speaker will not say, for the people making the inquiries, they should go further and ensure that the Lekki issue they must be asked for. And last, Mr. Speaker, please, sir, that even Mr. Ashwaju.
Thank you, Honorable Ayode. Honorable Ishao.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. I want to identify with all what my colleagues have said. I will try as much as possible not to repeat them, but Tuesday, 20th of October 2020 was a very black day for our state. It was with rude shock, a lot of concern, fears that we lived through that day. Permit me to commiserate with the families of those that lost their lives all over the state and Nigeria in general. The people, the policemen that were lost, and I know some military men were also lost across the country. Properties, those that lost properties, businesses, because sometimes when you lose your property, sometimes you feel like dying. And the emotional trauma Nigerians have been put through with some of the videos that
Honorable Temitope.
The NSAS process or protest was well intended, but along the lines, for various reasons that some of my colleagues have adduced here, lost it, lost control of it. The shooting that took place in that place is condemnable, because just like Mr. Speaker and the governor of Lagos State have said, it shouldn't have happened. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for taking leadership, for foreseeing the unseen, because when you called us here on Friday, it was the 9th of October, to come and pass a resolution with respect to the request of our youth, the NSAS movement. We didn't know it was going to snowball into this, but apparently you had an inkling on that happening. From you, I would like to commiserate with the entire membership, the governor of our state. The governor also stood up to be counted. He did everything possible to take charge of the situation, but somehow we lost control of it. For the hoodlums that hijacked the protest, and for people with political motives that capitalized on that process to attack the likes of our own Ashiwaju and also the Oba of Lagos, I say shame on you. You should have come out and meet them on the appropriate field, not hide behind the protest. But shame on you. But the long arm of the law will catch you. Definitely, I can tell you that. Mr. Speaker, there are lessons learned. My colleagues have highlighted a lot of them. Fake news, social influences. We need to do something. Whether it's educating Nigerians to be discerning about what they see, or some other stringent methods that is being muted. Also, devolution of power is key. We said it here during the independence speech. Now, even the federal government said the states should go and set up their panels of inquiry. They should go and clean up their mess in short. So that is also very important. Mr. Speaker, we also need a police restructuring. The mindset of a policeman is still from a colonial time, as it's been said. The police must be made to realize they need to serve. They're here to serve and protect, not to brutalize the citizens of the state, because that was what led to all this in the first instance. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I think we also have lessons to take away from this. The trust level of the community of our citizenry towards government is very low. We need to do things, find a way to raise this trust level, so that when government tells Nigerians, Lagosians something, they believe and they go to sleep and say they can do it. We need to do a lot more on transparency. We've been doing it. We need to do a lot more on welfare. Welfare should be in the front burner right now. We also need to do a lot more on accountability. Mr. Speaker, I like the prayer of Honorable Ulo, which which says that we should set up a committee to look at what has happened across the state. I also want to, somebody mentioned it there, that compensation to be made to people that have lost property. I agree totally with that. And finally, the police, like Honorable Merinda, the Chief Whip, mentioned, we need to look at that, how to support them. The police is the frontliner when it comes to governance. They are the ones that enforce the law. The way they treat the people and so on and so forth will do
Thank you.
back. So we need to do something for them and for their welfare, because they also have families. Thank you very much.
Honorable Agde.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker. What we are being faced is a sorry thing. Nigeria is in a sorry stage. Lagos is in a sorry stage. Every one of us here is in a sorry stage. But to start with, I need to thank the Honorable Speaker for your efforts so far. At the same time, I want to thank the Chief Executive of Lagos State, the Governor, for his up and doing. I want to thank each and every one of us representing our own constituency for what we have been doing so far. Democracy. Democracy comes with a lot of benefits. And as a sort of this, it's a form of government that is best because it is based on justice. Apart from this, it seems impunity has found its way into democracy. Because when we look at it very well, we discover that there is impunity everywhere. When we talk about the internet, it's a lawless society. A situation whereby hackers can hack into computers and they will go with impunity. This is not good enough. I wouldn't want to talk much, but I would just want to mention 3 categories based on what the majority leader said. But my own is not really the same. Of course, I identified the first set of people that came up with this protest, the NSAS, which I will call the educated elite. I wouldn't say they are semi-educated. The second one are those that are fighting the intellect, those that have preconceived ideas as to what they want, which is hidden in them. While the third one is the hoodlums and the miscreants. We are able to know the first one because they came here, they protested all over, and they were also invited here. I don't know whether they were just sitting down here without listening to what we are saying. Because they were supposed to go out and tell others that you were all represented. This is what they say at Lagos State House of Assembly. I made efforts to go and talk to them, but what I saw, I just couldn't come out because they were completely out of it. Secondly, those that were behind it, that just captured on that opportunity, they were the ones that caused a lot of havoc. And if we look at it, well, it is God that will handle everybody fully. Because what they have caused us in Lagos, it is only God that can bring us out of it, individually and collectively. I will only want to emphasize on the miscreants, the hoodlums. I will say these people, they don't even bother about gun. I saw something. As I'm talking with you, I'm still not comfortable with myself. I saw all these small boys. They used to call them 1 battalion boys, 50 million, whatever million. But what I saw in Amu Odofin, I made my quest to find out where are these people from. They said some of them came from Ajegunle, some of them from Masamasa. I said, what? They were defiant. These people were defiant. They wanted to penetrate the mall. Despite the fact that there was a rebellious attack by the mobile police, these boys were desperate and they wanted to enter into that ShopRite.
Please, Honorable, get her round up.
Okay, sir. So my prayer is one, I want an urgent and forcefully capture of these miscreants for reformation or rehabilitation. Because if we don't do this, they can come to any of us or anywhere with the idea of colonizing us. That is my prayer. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Satonji.
The Right Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate you for your leadership. You have demonstrated it during this particular challenge, and I also appreciate the governor. But I agree absolutely with all my colleagues for their contributions. But we must learn from what has happened. There are challenges in this society. The end started well. Everybody was in their support. The miscreant took over. So what caused those things? There is a challenge or a disconnect between the governed and the government. The level of poverty in this country is beyond understanding. And those are things that have actually made matters worse. There are so many unemployed people. So they just took advantage. I can assure you that a well-employed youth, a gainfully employed youth, it's very rare for them to be involved in those kind of terrible things we saw during this week. For this reason, I plead with the government.
Sorry, Honorable Satonji, we have to be very careful with all these statements. If we are talking about employed youth and unemployed youth and all this, it's like setting, what is it called, templates for them to justify what has happened. Well, we should be able to identify those who are ready to work from those who are willing. You have to look at all these things. We don't just talk about this. And most times, even everywhere, and this we have been saying all over, that, self-sustainability is main issue now. Because if we start talking about everybody looking for job, why we turn out thousands of graduates out annually? So who is going to accommodate them? Self-employment is key. We have to say that. And besides that, even those who are into, what do we call it, the electricians, the tilers, the plumbers, and all these, the carpenters, artisans. So how many of these youths are willing? How many of them are willing to take up this job? It's so bad now that, people have to go to neighboring countries to bring in artisans to, practice this job we're talking about. So we just have to look at it. We don't just address issue holistically without looking deep into it. If not, we'll be creating, room and opportunity for these miscreants to hide under in the name of no job.
Thank you very much, sir. The point is, of the Right Honorable Speaker is well taken. But one thing I also noticed in Lagos Island is the fact that so many infrastructure of the state government were damaged. And some of the federal government organizations were also very close to that neighborhood. And those ones were still intact. It gives me a kind of, I feel as that something must be amiss for us to have that kind of damage within the same vicinity, and while the others were left undone. But that is just left for the other agencies to unravel. Lastly, sir, I also want to add that the inquiry as suggested by the Honorable Lowo be looked into so that we can actually set up a particular body in the House to look into it. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Macaulay.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues. I'm really emotional. I'm a very emotional person, so I'm struggling with my words over what has happened. I don't think, as a parent, looking at the videos trending on all of the social media, I don't think I can actually put my thoughts together since this fateful event. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to commend you for your gallant courage, and as well as the governor, the executive governor of Lagos State, for taking the prompt initiative and also to try to show some sense of responsibility to her citizens. Mr. Speaker, I also want to adopt every comments, suggestions, prayers of my colleagues. But I just want to make a quick digression. Mr. Speaker, you see these young people, we have failed them as parents. The family is the smallest unit of every society. It's the reflection of the larger society. If you look at the parents today, how many parents listen to their children? How many parents are there for their children? A lot of parents have children they don't even need these days. Look at the population of children everywhere. They struggle to raise their children. They can't even afford to give them 3 square meals. We all grew up in this country. I could remember growing up. My father never left the home when my mother was not around. Both of them never traveled at the same time. Somebody had to be around. But today, how many parents, they make up the excuse that they're going in search of daily, what the children would eat. Mr. Speaker, ilé ta fi tọ́mọ, ìrìn ni a wò. Ọmọ tá a bá kọ́, àgbélé ta kọ́ta. Look at the children these days, the youths. I like your submission, Mr. Speaker, that it is not unemployment that should be the bane or the reason why youths will come out and begin to misbehave. There are unemployments in so many countries of the world, even in the United States. I schooled in the UK, and I saw a lot of young people who were not employed, but they didn't become hoodlums. Why can't we look inwards and look for solutions to our problems? Why can't the young people look within themselves, look for their talents? Even if as graduates, what stops you from becoming a designer or a professional tiler or what have you, and make a brand of it? There is no excuse for being a hoodlum. Mr. Speaker, I think it is about time. I mentioned this on the floor of the House. Ab initio, we became members of the 9th Assembly, that the National Orientation Agency needs to set to work. We need to begin to orientate our young people. They need people who can talk to them from time to time. They are high on drugs all the time, most of them. They go to social media, they do all sorts of things. I'm even scared to give my young children phones because I'm scared I don't know what they would see on the social media. It's that bad. We need to set the National Orientation Agency to work. The Nigerian National Population Commission. We need to have data. We need to have statistics of our citizens. We need to know who is what and where. We need to be able to identify our people. And Mr. Speaker, this is my humble submission. in conjunction with what Honorable Rotimi has said, that a committee be set up to look into this carnage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Lastly, Honorable Shokunle.
Let me see if this will work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow colleagues, good afternoon. Not to repeat what others have said, but permit me to commiserate with Mr. Governor, the Speaker, also those people that lost their means of livelihood. As rightly put, Mr. Speaker, the issue on social influenza that misinformed the general public, I think, contributed majorly to the destruction in the states. At the initial stage, the protest was a bit peaceful. There's no act of turning back any vehicle. They are demonstrating it in a very, meaningful manner until when everything got out of hand. I don't know whether to call it hoodlums joining them or miscreants joining them. Anything in excess will turn to be something else. They have, stayed for too many days. Protest shouldn't be more than, it should at least for 2-3 days. Federal governments, they've attended to all the requests. I think the next thing for them is to leave the road. But since they refuse to go back to their various homes, there's no how miscreants will not join the system. So on this note, Mr. Speaker, and another thing, before the problem, somebody tweeted something very, very bloody on social media. I think that person must be retracted. We should be able to track down the very first person that sent that video that 78 people killed in Lekki, mass shooting this, all this kind of a thing. We should be able to track down all this information. This will be, for future occurrences. Such things will not happen again. But if we can stop this, I think in future, such act will stop in the state. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for your contributions. And on my part, I will have this to say. Dear colleagues, the event that have taken over our state and by extension Nigeria within the past 2 weeks regarding the NSAS protest and its aftermath as such that call for concerns in their entirety. You will recall that this House of Assembly was the first in the nation to identify with the cause of the youth asking for an end to police brutality in the nation. We unanimously threw our weight behind their movement by even coming up with lofty resolutions that were meant to readily address their agitation. It is regrettable, however, to learn that the peaceful protest was not only hijacked by unpatriotic elements who don't mean well for the populace, but also brutally ended with the use of force that took place at Lekki Toll Gate on October 20. The single incident has reportedly led to loss of lives and belongings, while some are also wounded. It is based on this that I urge all patriotic Lagosians to defend and protect their properties and lives. While I may not say much about the Lekki Toll Gate as investigation to the event is ongoing, it is its aftermath, however, which has brought about wanton destruction of both private and government property, enterprises, arson, and looting all over the country, particularly in our dear state, is pathetic. Last Saturday, while on a visit to some of the areas affected by the dastardly actions of the hoodlums who took advantage of the protests against the now disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, I cannot but feel really bad about the level of destruction in the state. Some of the areas I visited in company of some members of this honorable house include Lagos High Court, the BRT Oyingbo Terminal, Fagba, Isokoko Police Station, Pensinima Police Station, Oba Akeolu Palace, City Hall, and Public Works Corporation. The level of ruins in all these places mentioned is beyond imagination. Let me use this medium to remind us that Lagos State, being a mini Nigeria, has always maintained a very respected place in the country as well in Africa. Lagos is a state that harbors everyone, notwithstanding their nativity, political, or religious affiliation. May I let us know that it will not do us any good to continue in this act of careless destruction and bringing hardship to everyone around us. In fact, looting government and private properties will lead to more hardship for us. Lagos State belongs to all of us, and we should strive to protect its properties, people, and the heritage that binds us together as a people. Permit me to use this opportunity to appeal to all Lagosians that we should do all we can to move away from any form of further destruction. Having said that, I also urge the state government to do all it can within its ambit to fish out all the unscrupulous elements who were involved in the looting and destruction all over Lagos, thereby making sure that they face the wrath of law accordingly. At the same time, the state governments must employ everything within its capacity to forestall the recurrence of such destruction in future. The state government also needs to take a step further to empower and strengthen the neighborhood safety corps with all the paraphernalia of security outfits. Also, I think if there's any time for our agitation for state police to be given utmost attention, it is now. As a House of Assembly, we are aware of the effects of the social media on the overall incident. Hence, I urge every one of us to verify information properly before sharing. Fake news will do us more harm than good. It is on this note that I commiserate with all the people who have been affected in one way or the other as a result of the actions and inactions orchestrated by the protest. My heartfelt condolences go to all the families who have lost their loved ones. Also to all members of Nigerian police, the gallant officers who were attacked and killed by the hoodlums. Particularly, I am touched by the level of carnage carried out at the Oba's Akeolu's Palace. Being our ancestral seat of power, it is saddening and disheartening to learn that such heinous activities could be perpetrated by these miscreants and fandas, leading to wanton desecration of our traditional heritage in Lagos. I also sympathize with the judiciary, all the lawyers whose offices were vandalized and looted, as well as all our law enforcement officers. I would like to bring it to our notice that a committee has already been set up that will review cases of those who lost their belongings and wares with view to supporting them by the government. I assure you all that this assembly will join with the executive in working out compensation modality for all victims. Let me reiterate the position of the government on SARS. I beg this police unit has been disbanded for good, as we have been told by federal government. However, citizens should rest assured that all officers culpable in any form of police brutality will indeed be brought to book. I urge all Lagosians to imbibe the spirit of oneness. We should not allow the circumstances around us cause any division. Let us all come together to rebuild our Lagos, and as the representatives of the people, we will continue to be on their side and always represent their interests towards developing our dear streets. One truth I know, Lagos will never fall. I thank you all for listening. It is on this note that we arrive on these prayers. One, to rise and observe a minute silence 2, to write a letter of sympathy to the governor. 3, to invite the victim, those who have lost their properties. And 4, seek collaboration with the victims to identify perpetrators, and also call on Mr. President on the need to establish state police and also National Assembly to include state police in the amendments ongoing. I think from this way we can accommodate other suggestions as being raised by members. Before we put the questions, shall we rise and observe 1 minute silence in honor of those patriotic Lagosians who lost their lives and not miscreants that were killed by the police? Mr. Clark, kindly observe 1 minute silence. May their souls rest in perfect peace. And to set up ad hoc committee. All in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. The committee shall be headed by the Deputy Speaker, Member Honorable Tobu, Honorable Lobo, Honorable Ajani, Honorable Okonlawon, Honorable Victor, Honorable Makinde, Honorable Layode, and Honorable Shokunle. They will report back to the House on their findings and suggestions in 3 weeks. Yeah, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, after extensive deliberation on the devastating effects and aftermath of NSAS protests in Lagos State, destruction of monuments, public and private properties, I have the approval of the Right Honourable Speaker to move that the House adjourn till Monday, the 2nd day of November. I have the approval of the Speaker to move that the House adjourns till Monday, the 2nd day of November by 12 noon. I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion as moved. Before the question is posed, there will be a short meeting immediately after plenary. All in favor say aye. Those against no, the ayes have it. This House stands adjourned to 2nd November 2020 at 12 noon prompt. I rise.